Planet Earth 1 was the first major nature documentary to be filmed in high definition. When it was originally aired in 2006, it had impressive ratings in both UK and US, and it won multiple awards, including several Emmys and a Peabody Award. More than 10 years later, Planet Earth 2 is again pushing the boundaries by being one of the first documentaries released in HDR on 4K Blu-ray discs. The sequel was again produced by the BBC Natural History Unit in Bristol. However, this time it only has 6 episodes compared to the 11 episodes of Planet Earth 1. The episodes are stored on two 66GB 4K discs, which means each disc contains 3 episodes. One of the main reasons for reducing the number of episodes was technical complexity. Planet Earth 2 is using a lot of technology that was only widely introduced in the last 10 years, including drones for aerial shots, gimbals for steady shots, as well as low-light, infrared, and thermal cameras. The main cameras used for the documentary were RED cameras, using the Dragon sensor that can shoot video in 6K at up to 100 frames per second, and 4K at up to 120 frames per second. The high frame rates allow for more cinematic slowed-down footage. This sensor is excellent for creating HDR video, since it has more than 16 stops of dynamic range, and it can capture video at 16-bit, which yields trillions of colors. What all of this means is that the producers had a lot of latitude in post-production to adjust the colors and the exposure for the final 10-bit HDR video output that is stored on the 4K discs. Another feature that they liked on the RED cameras is the 4-second pre-record buffer, which captures 4 seconds of footage before the cameraman presses the record button. This feature ensured that they didn't miss any interesting animal behavior. In addition to RED cameras, they also used ARRI Amira, which can capture up to 10-bit 4K video. But apart from these high-end cinema cameras, they also used a variety of equipment with lower specs, including Sony a7S, which is very good in low light, Panasonic GH4 that can record 4K 10-bit externally, down to even GoPro Hero 3. Finally, in terms of drones, they used some of the first versions of the Inspire 1 and DJI Phantom drones. Since they used a variety of cameras, the quality of some of the shots is quite uneven. The most obvious scenes with issues are the aerial shots that you can see right now. If we zoom in into some of these images, you can tell they use pretty low resolution, most likely 2.7K or 1080p. The producers even admitted in interviews that about 20% of footage is not 4K. Even some of the 4K footage that they shot is not up to spec, since 4K discs require at least 10-bit video. But some of the cameras they use, like the A7S, can only output 8-bit. One potential downside of 8-bit video is that banding can be visible when shooting the sky, but since they use the Sony a7S at night, this is not very visible. The decision to create an HDR master in addition to SDR came quite late in the post-production process. But what's really interesting is that the documentary was color graded in a type of HDR called hybrid log gamma, which was proposed by the BBC in collaboration with Japan's NHK. It was only at the end of the mastering process that HLG was automatically converted to perceptual quantizer, PQ for short, which is the standard transfer function used for 4K HDR discs. So keep in mind that what you get when you watch these 4K discs is not real HLG, since that's not allowed yet on 4K discs. But HLG may be widely adopted in the future for TV and internet delivery. While PQ can theoretically go up to 10,000 nits, HLG tops out at 5,000. This is not a big difference since most HDR content today goes only about to 1000 nits. But what's most interesting about HLG is that it is backwards compatible with SDR content. That is, you can play the same file on SDR and HDR screens, and it will look pretty good on both. This is because HLG takes into account the maximum brightness of the display as well as the surrounding light in the room, and adjusts the brightness accordingly. PQ, on the other hand, specifies absolute brightness in nits. What this means in practice is that HLG content can be viewed in brighter environments than PQ. As you may have noticed from the graph on the screen, the brightness of Planet Earth 2 mostly stays at less than 500 nits. I found this very interesting because the movies I reviewed until now all went up to 1000 nits in brightness. To make this more obvious, I added a horizontal white line at the 500 mark. Here's how the same graph looks sped up over a bunch of the higher brightness clips I could find. I don't know if this is a side effect of the conversion from HLG to PQ, but the result is that some of the shots where the sun is visible have lower brightness than what I'm used to with HDR. Still, I think HDR is used quite well here, but it is more obvious in the scenes filmed with the higher-end cameras. In closing, let me give you my wish list for future documentaries like Planet Earth. I think they should start mastering the content at 60 frames per second, especially for the hunting scenes. I also think they should make the shots more visually consistent by using 4K 10-bit footage throughout the episodes. I hope to see these improvements either in future BBC documentaries or in the Netflix documentary Our Planet, which is being filmed by the same team that worked on Planet Earth 1, and which will debut on Netflix in 2019.